Are you considering investing your hard-earned money on calisthenics equipment? Before you do that, watch this video through. In this video, we'll go through the must-know tips and insights into what calisthenics gear to buy, as I have bought pretty much everything there is out there over the years in terms of calisthenics equipment, and I'm gonna let you know in a tier list fashion what is gonna be worth your money and what isn't. I'm also gonna give a key tip for each piece of equipment that you probably never would have heard before, and also some of the equipment you never would have seen before. So make sure you watch through to the end so you don't miss a piece of equipment that might help boost your progress. Weight vests and weight belts. So really this one is quite simple. If you're at the stage where you're intermediate to advanced, you're committed to calisthenics and bodyweight training, you've been doing it for maybe 8-9 months now, you've shown you've committed to it, and now you want to continue doing that, but your skills, your exercises are getting a little bit too easy, you might need to add weight to continue progressing, or you're going to hit a big plateau. That might be the case where you need to buy a weight vest or weight belt. I would buy a weight vest, and here's the key point here. If I was focusing more on static skills, more on levers, more on doing cardio with a weight vest, something that you need sturdy, so handstand push-ups, if I was working on handstand push-ups and skills like that, a weight vest is going to be much better. But if I was focused more on weighted calisthenics, my pull-ups and my dips, I'd definitely be going for a weight belt. So really it's an A tier piece of equipment, weight vests and weight belts, progress boosters. All right, let's take this off. Dip bars and static bars. The reason they're so good is that although they're not so transportable because of, they're made of metal, although they're light, they're a bit awkward to carry around. But the amazing thing about this is because, as the name suggests, you're able to do dips on them, exercises above the bar, and then you're also able to do pulling exercises below the bar. That's why they're so great. So quickly, let's talk about static bars. Static bars are much longer than dip bars. They're this long because you want to train static skills on them, hence the name. That's why static bars also are now getting popular, because more people getting into calisthenics and learning static skills, and these are great. So the key point for dip bars is get these if you're staying in one primary location to train, and also try not to get the variable height ones, the ones where you can kind of twist the knob, you can lower it and raise it. I've tried some of these, they're sort of lighter, they're not as sturdy. Just get a regular dip bar, it's going to be less gimmicky and it's going to do the job a lot better. For static bars, these are going to be more expensive, but if you are focused on statics, you're committed, and this is going to serve you for years to come, it's going to be worth getting that static bar now, getting used to the grip on it, and start working on those advanced pulling skills. And there's some advanced pushing ones as well you can learn on it, so it might be worth, if you're into your static skills, getting that bar instead. I almost forgot, it's going in A tier, progress booster, ankle weights. So with ankle weights, I'm kind of torn here, and I think some of you guys might be surprised with my answer. So with ankle weights, they're similar to weight vests and weight belts. You're adding some external weight. You're going to get rid of that vagueness involved with some calisthenics training. However, it's only really useful for some people. For example, if you're really into your core exercises are getting really easy for you, ankle weights could be great. Besides that, I don't really see a big use for ankle weights. I think you can get by without them. So if you do need them, I think they're A tier. But if you don't really need them, you don't really train statics like that, you don't really do a lot of specific core exercises like that, I think it might be B or C tier. I'm gonna put them in the middle of the pack in B tier, but depending on whether you really need them or you don't need them, it could even be A or C tier. The doorway pull-up bar. This going straight in S tier. You need to have a high bar to do any real good vertical pulling movement. I mean, you can on dip bars if they're high enough, but really if you're a beginner or learning anything that's a pure vertical pulling movement and you want to get a good full range of motion, the doorway pull-up bar is what you want to get. I mean, this is a must buy. There's not really anything else to say here. If you're training from home, getting a doorway pull-up bar is essential. Elbow sleeves and wrist wraps. So firstly, let's talk about elbow sleeves. What do elbow sleeves even do? So there are two functions to elbow sleeves. The first one is keeping the joint or area warm. So you can get either elbow sleeves or forearm sleeves. These Gornation ones kind of act as both. They're long enough and stretchy enough. They can cover the elbow and the forearm if you want. So those are great because they're the ones I recommend. So elbow sleeves, they keep the joint or area warm. This means it's less likely you're going to injure yourself. It's going to have a lower injury risk in that area because you're keeping the joint warm because it has something insulating it. So that's the first reason. You have a slightly lower injury risk. The elbow joint is not going to get cold. So the second thing, it's going to provide a little bit of support. So it actually acts as a physical structure helping the joint move. So it's only going to provide a little bit of support. It's not one of those really tight wraps that you do for squatting or something like that. It's just going to provide a little bit of support. And that's very important here because it's not going to help if you're already injured. It will a bit, but if you already injured yourself, you've already done the damage. So it's time to focus on recovery. The key point for elbow sleeves, don't always use them. Don't use them every workout. Use them only on those days where the elbows feel a little bit tender. Maybe it's very cold. That's the time to throw on the elbow sleeves. If you use them all the time, you're going to start relying on them. Also, the body gains less adaptations when you train with elbow sleeves on. So potentially your joints could be a lot stronger if you weren't using elbow sleeves than compared to if you were using them every single session. So I recommend training without them, but only using them when you need them. It's a solid piece of equipment that you should get if you train in a cold climate, outside, or if your elbows get tender a lot. Now moving on to wrist wraps. And the number one tip I can give for wrist wraps is start with the thicker ones. Gore Nation sells thicker ones, which I think are called their performance wrist wraps. This is going to give more support. It's going to be more similar to the powerlifting wrist wraps. Then over time, go down to these light wrist wraps. They're softer and lighter and allow more flexibility. That means your wrists are going to get more conditioned to the exercises you're doing, and then over time go to training with none. That's what I've done, and now my wrists are bulletproof. So that's what I'd do. I'd start off as a beginner using some thicker ones, work my way down until I'm training with none and I pretty much don't need them. Wrist wrap, solid piece of equipment you can spend your money on. Kinesiology tape. So kinesiology tape, you might not know what this is, but if you've watched any kind of sport, you probably would have seen athletes with tape on them. And that's because this kinesiology tape has some properties that some people like to believe helps with performance and increasing blood flow. But honestly, when you have the tape on, you feel like an absolute athlete. Obviously be careful, but the mental aspect of just having the tape on really helps, and there's some scientific backing to it, and it's pretty cheap, so why not? I'd rather get, some other items on this list compared to this one, so I can't put it this high. So I'm gonna put it in the niche category. You're better off spending your money elsewhere, but if you want to throw something in your basket that's relatively cheap, I would throw this in there. I wouldn't say it would do much harm. Soft grips, hand grips, or bar grips. So what are hand grips? Well, they're these. And what are they used for? Well, those days where you're grabbing a cold pull-up bar, maybe it's really rough, you've been doing sets of pull-ups and now your hands are red raw at the callus. Throw these on, you can get those extra few sets out and you can just continue with your training. Of course, you could use cloth or something like that, or even gloves, but really who wants to do that? So honestly, not essential, but I'm not gonna lie, I do really like them when they come in handy, but you don't use them all the time. It's gonna have to go in solid piece of equipment, medium-sized bars. But honestly, this piece of equipment is great. You can do pretty much all your pushing exercises on it. It's exactly the same. The grip is the same. If you're good with parallettes on the floor, get these bars because it's gonna help you with your progression as you get to intermediate and advanced stages, and you can do advanced skills on it as well. You can also do a few select pulling skills on it, such as, bar Victorian, things like that. So honestly, these bars are great. However, they're not that easy to transport. They're a bit bulky. However, the Gore Nation ones, they do come with a strap. If you do need more information on these bars and a better comparison, then I've made a full video that you can watch here after this video on a full video breaking down what parallettes to buy, the mid, low, or high, but I'm still gonna rate them in this video. And it's gonna go in A tier. But if you are looking for a pair of mid bars or bars that are closer to the floor, then check out Gore Nation. They are the bars I've been showing you in this video and the bars I recommend. I've done a comparison video and these were the ones I recommended. So please, if you're looking for bars, get these ones and you can use the code JACK10. It'll help me out as well and you'll get minus 10% off the price at checkout. Tripods or phone stands. You want to be recording every set because in calisthenics, the form is even harder to get right in some exercises. The movement pattern is even more complex, more joints are moving at once, and the breathing usually is even harder. So get a good phone stand or tripod to record yourself on. Trust me, it's gonna be worth it. I'm gonna make the argument this is calisthenics equipment and is a pure progress booster, so I would definitely get this. Not essential, but it's gonna be one of the next things I buy if I was to start buying equipment from scratch. Gymnastics rings. Guys, I'm gonna cut this one short and just tell you this one is essential. You need a good pair of wooden rings if you're serious about calisthenics. You can do so much on rings. You can do beginner exercises or you can do super advanced exercises. Having a good set of gymnastics rings is gonna be so good for progression. You can learn strength and hypertrophy skills. The key point for rings is there are different sizes of rings, but I've made a full comparison video on my channel. You can check that out if you are looking at rings and want to decide what size to get, but check out that video. Basically, get a pair of rings. Resistance bands. You guys can tell I like resistance bands and they're pretty useful. You can pretty much learn any skill in calisthenics or exercise using resistance bands. Get a good range, get a super heavy one and all the way to super light, because you're gonna be able to warm up with the light ones, work out with the medium sized ones, and then for skills you're not ready for but you wanna learn, there are use cases where heavy bands like this one are useful. I do use this one quite a lot. You'll be surprised how useful it can get, but that comes down more to programming compared to the band. So don't listen to those people that say heavy bands aren't useful. They are, just comes down to the programming and how you're using it. If you use it wrong, they're not useful. But basically, get resistance bands. They are essential. Non-stretchy, non-looped resistance bands. So you know those resistance bands they're using like yoga to pull your leg, or those other bands that you put around your legs to either open up your hips or keep your legs tight in squats? Unless you're using it for those situations, they're pretty much useless. They're not going to be useful for learning calisthenic skills. I know a lot of people that have purchased the wrong bands and kept them because oh, you know, these are just rubber bands. They're pretty much the same. But if you buy those bands by mistake, send them back. Don't use them. They're not worth your money. Liquid or powdered chalk. I got this last October and it's now May. That's how long this has lasted me. And there's still about this much left in the bag. That's gonna take me another maybe 4 or 5 months to get to the bottom of that. And I train about 4 to 5 times a week and I use this every session. I can't recommend enough buying chalk. There's pretty much no downside to using chalk. I tried to think of some and really I couldn't think of anything significant that would make me not buy chalk. No downside, so S-tier. Ice packs. They're going in solids, so these are great when you need them. I have a little bit of a biceps injury here. It helps reduce the pain, reduce the inflammation. It's great when you finish your session, anywhere that's tender, your elbows, tendons, that's going to be a great places where you want to ice them. Never buy one, always buy two, have one in the freezer ready to go, and then buy one of these straps. Basically, you can strap it around you, you put the ice pack in it, of course, and then you can have it on your bicep. Recovering, absolutely solid. It's not going to be for everyone, but for those of you that want to boost your recovery, go for it. Iron cross trainers. If you are dedicated to learning the iron cross, you're sure you want to learn it, then it's going to be a B tier. It's going to be solid because you can get away with learning the iron cross other ways. There's plenty of people that have learned the iron cross without using iron cross trainers. I wanted to give it a go. They are pricier. They're maybe 150 euros, probably around there, but they're really great. And the last piece of equipment is going to be a backpack with straps. This is going to be very useful if you travel a lot. If you're going to a different country or something like that, you want to take a carry-on on the plane, you want to take a few Parallettes with you, you can just put that on. But basically, this is going to be good if you travel a lot and go to different parks and want to train and bring your Parallettes with you. Getting a good sized bag with some straps on it. You can get a skateboard bag as well. That will probably work as well. Or this Gornation bag is also suited to carrying your Parallettes as well. So again, if you're looking for any of the calisthenics equipment I mentioned in this video, most of it is going to be on the Gornation website. It's built for calisthenics equipment. Use the code JACK10 to get minus 10% off. And if you haven't already, then watch this video because I give a full breakdown of a comparison between medium, low, and mid-sized dip bars, which one you should get for your skill level, and what exercises you can do on each of them.